They thought Earth would kneel. They thought humanity would beg. They thought fear would be enough. They were wrong. In less than an hour, the oldest power in the galaxy would begin to fall, and it all started with one message sent to the wrong planet. The Galactic Council had ruled the stars for more than 12,000 years. To most civilizations, the Council was not just a government. It was fate itself. Entire species had risen and fallen under its laws. Worlds had been spared or erased with a single vote. No one questioned the Council's authority, because no one had ever survived defying it. The Council station drifted above a lifeless planet known as Caro's Void. The station was enormous, wider than some moons, covered in layers of metal, energy shields, and ancient symbols carved by species long extinct. This was where laws were written. This was where threats became reality. Inside the highest chamber, 12 beings sat in a perfect circle. Each was different, some tall and skeletal, others massive and armored, others glowing with strange inner light. They were the rulers of known space. At the center hovered Supreme Arbiter Zalverin. Zalverin had ruled for nearly 4 centuries. His species, the Villari, believed emotion was weakness. His voice never rose. His expression never changed. Entire civilizations had died under his calm decisions. A low tone echoed through the chamber. "Begin session," Zalverin said. A holographic star map appeared. One small blue dot pulsed near the edge of known space. "This," Zalverin continued, "is Earth." Murmurs spread among the council members. Earth was not unknown, but it had never mattered. "A primitive species," said Councillor Drex of the Iron Clans. "Barely spacefaring." "They should not be here," hissed Councillor Saron, her many eyes narrowing. "Our records mark them as insignificant." "They entered council space without permission," Zalverin replied. "That alone is punishable by extinction." The image shifted. A single human ship appeared, small, angular, scarred by visible welds. Compared to council vessels, it looked fragile, almost laughable. "The vessel identifies itself as the UNS Horizon," Zalverin said. "It requests diplomatic contact." Laughter echoed from several council members. "Diplomacy?" Drex scoffed. "With that?" "Send the message," Saron said coldly. "Make it clear who they face." Zalverin nodded once. Captain Elias Monroe stood on the bridge of the UNS Horizon, hands clasped behind his back. He was calm, but every human on that ship felt the weight of the moment. They had trained for this day for decades. Some had been born for it. A soft alert sounded. "They've responded," said Lieutenant Hannah Cole. Monroe nodded. "Put it through." The hologram flickered. Zalverin's image filled the bridge, tall, pale, emotionless. "You have violated Galactic Council law," Zalverin said. "You will submit to Council authority immediately." Monroe met his gaze. "We came to speak as equals," Monroe said evenly. The chamber behind Zalverin erupted in laughter again. "Equals?" Drex roared. "You are dust pretending to be stone." Zalverin raised a hand. Silence returned. "You misunderstand your position," he said. "Your species will accept vassal status. You will surrender military authority, planetary resources, and population quotas. In return, you will be allowed to exist." Monroe didn't answer immediately. Instead, he smiled. "That won't be happening." The chamber froze. Zalverin's eyes narrowed. "This is not a negotiation." "It never is with bullies," Monroe replied. A ripple of anger moved through the council. "You have 12 hours, Zalverin said. "Refuse us, and Earth will be erased. Your oceans will boil. Your cities will turn to ash. This is your only mercy." The transmission ended. On the horizon, no one spoke. Finally, Monroe exhaled. "Send the signal," he said. Lieutenant Cole hesitated. "Once we do, there's no going back." Monroe looked out at the stars. They already chose that. She pressed the control. Across the galaxy, hidden relays activated, devices disguised as debris, asteroids, even dead satellites. Signals moved faster than Council science believed possible. On Earth, deep beneath the surface, alarms that had never sounded before came alive. General Rear Donovan stood in a silent command chamber, surrounded by screens lighting up one by one. Green indicators spread like wildfire. Lazarus Protocol confirmed, an AI voice announced. Donovan closed her eyes for a brief moment. "So it begins," she whispered. Around the world, things began to move. Mountains opened. Oceans shifted. Stars watched. Humanity had never been weak. It had only been waiting. Back at the Council station, Supreme Arbiter Zalverin reviewed ancient records. Something bothered him. The humans had not begged. They had not pleaded. They had smiled. Fear had always worked. Why hadn't it this time? A junior analyst entered, trembling. "Supreme Arbiter, we are detecting anomalies. Energy spikes in multiple systems. Communications disruptions." Zalverin stood slowly. "Explain." "We can't," the analyst said. "It's like the systems were prepared for this." Zalverin felt something unfamiliar tighten in his chest. For the first time in centuries. Doubt. Outside the station, the stars remained silent. For now. The Council believed they had 12 hours. Humanity needed only minutes. Because the most dangerous thing in the galaxy was not a superweapon. It was a species that had spent its entire history solving problems while terrified, outnumbered, and one mistake away from death. And now that species had finally met an enemy big enough to unite it. The Council's countdown. Supreme Arbiter Zalverin stood in the command chamber of the Council station, watching the star map flicker with warning symbols. Around him, aides spoke in rushed whispers. Senior engineers argued in sharp tones. Military commanders demanded permission to deploy. Zalverin raised one hand. The room fell silent. "Report," he ordered. A tall insect-like being stepped forward, Council Security Director Veshtor, known for crushing rebellions before they began. "We have confirmed an organized disruption," Veshtor said. "Communications relays across Sector 9 are failing. Navigation beacons are broadcasting conflicting data. Civilian lanes are clogging. Panic is spreading." Zalverin's eyes narrowed. "A local uprising?" "No," Veshtor answered. "Too coordinated. Too precise." Another aide stepped forward, voice trembling. "Supreme Arbiter, we also detected strange pulses. Not weapons fire. Not engines. Something else. It's like a heartbeat." The words made several councillors shift uneasily. "A heartbeat?" Councillor Drex mocked. "This is nonsense." Zalverin did not laugh. He looked again at the tiny blue dot labeled Earth. Then at the human ship, the UNS Horizon, still docked under heavy guard. The humans were quiet. Calm. That was wrong. He turned to Veshtor. "Seal the human vessel. Confiscate their systems. Tear it apart if necessary." Veshtor bowed. "As you command." The human ship that wasn't what it seemed. Inside the docking bay, armed council guards surrounded the horizon. Their armor glowed with power. Their weapons were heavy enough to melt metal. They stood in perfect formation, confident, proud. The airlock opened. Captain Elias Monroe stepped out with 3 crew members. No weapons. No armor. Just a simple uniform, plain boots, and a calm face. Veshtor approached, towering over him. "You will surrender your ship for inspection," Veshtor said. Monroe tilted his head. "Already?" "You have caused disruptions across Council space," Veshtor snapped. "You will cooperate." Monroe smiled softly, almost kindly. "Of course," he said. "We're guests, after all." The guards moved forward. And then the lights in the docking bay flickered. 1 second. 2 seconds. Then every council guard froze as their helmets flashed red warnings. A human voice came through their speakers, calm and gentle. "Hello," it said. This is Horizon AI. For your safety, please remain still. Veshtor's mandibles spread in shock. What is this? A guard tried to raise his weapon. His arm locked. The weapon dropped. Then another guard collapsed, not dead, but unconscious, like someone had flipped a switch in his nervous system. Panic spread. Monroe didn't move. You can't do this, Veshtor hissed. This station is protected by Council systems. Monroe glanced up at the ceiling, as if listening. Our systems, he said, are already inside yours. The first reveal. Back on Earth, deep beneath the Atlantic, a facility that officially did not exist powered up its core. A woman stood in front of a massive glass chamber filled with swirling blue light. Dr. Lena Katri, the mind behind Lazarus Protocol, watched the numbers rise. A technician approached. Phase 1 is complete. Lena didn't smile. She was not excited. She was focused. How many nodes are active? Across Council space, the technician asked. All of them. Lena exhaled slowly. For 60 years, humanity had watched the Council from the shadows. Every transmission intercepted. Every law studied. Every weakness measured. They didn't try to match the Council's power. They did what humans always did when facing something bigger. They adapted. They improvised. They learned. And they built a trap. Lena looked at the screen. Proceed to Phase 2, she said. The device is hidden in plain sight. Across Council territory, tiny objects awakened. A broken satellite in an asteroid belt. A dead probe drifting near a gas giant. A chunk of debris near a trade lane that had been there for decades. None of it was debris. All of it was human. They weren't bombs. Not yet. They were keys. Keys that fit perfectly into the Council's ancient locks. Because the Council's greatest weakness wasn't their weapons. It was their arrogance. They never believed anyone could reach into their systems. They never believed anyone could plan for this long. They never believed a primitive species could hide inside their empire. But humans had learned long ago that strength alone didn't win wars. Information won wars. Patience won wars. And the ability to think like the enemy won wars. The Council finally seized the monster. In the Council chamber, emergency alarms screamed. Zalverin returned from his private console, his face colder than before. The other councillors shouted over one another. Sector 9 is collapsing. Our fleets are blind. Trade routes are failing. Civilian riots are beginning. Zalverin slammed his hand down. Silence fell instantly. Show me the source, he ordered. A hologram appeared, an expanding network of disruptions. It looked like a spiderweb spreading across their territory. One councillor leaned forward. That pattern. Zalverin's jaw tightened. It was not random chaos. It was deliberate. Organized. Centered around the Council's most important systems. It was an attack, not on ships, not on planets, but on control itself. Veshtor's voice broke through on an emergency channel. Supreme Arbiter, Veshtor hissed, panicked. The human ship, it's not what we thought. Zalverin's eyes narrowed. Explain. They have an intelligence inside our security network. It is disabling our guards. It is overriding our locks. It is. The transmission cut. Then the lights in the Council chamber flickered. A voice echoed through the hall, translated into every language flawlessly. Calm. Human. Almost friendly. Good evening, Galactic Council, it said. Thank you for hosting us. The councillors froze. Zalverin stood slowly, his gaze sweeping the chamber. Identify yourself, he demanded. The holographic projector changed. A new image appeared, simple text, clean and sharp. United Nations Strategic Network, Lazarus. Then another line. You threatened Earth. We heard you. The chamber erupted into chaos. Drex shouted, destroy the human ship. Sarun hissed, cut the power. Shut down the projectors. But the voice continued. You believe we are small, it said. You believe we are weak. You believe we will kneel or die. The words paused, like a storyteller enjoying the silence. We would like to introduce you to a third option. Zalverin's hands clenched. What do you want? He demanded. We want, the voice replied, for you to stop counting down to Earth's death, and start counting down to yours. The fleet that was never supposed to exist. Far beyond Council sensor range, space folded. A ripple of reality moved like a wave across the dark. Then ships appeared. Not one. Not 10. Hundreds. They emerged in perfect formation, sleek, black, scarred with stealth plating, each one carrying human markings and silent engines. At the front of the formation was something enormous. A warship the size of a city block. Its hull was painted matte grey, almost invisible in the dark. Across its side were 3 words, in plain English. We do not kneel. Admiral Sanar Idris stood on its bridge. She was calm. Her face showed no fear. A tactical officer looked up. Admiral, we are within striking range of Council Station. Sanar nodded. Begin the broadcast, she said. The officer hesitated. All channels. All channels, Sanar confirmed. Then she leaned forward and spoke into the command MIC. This is Admiral Idris of the United Earth Fleet, she said. To the Galactic Council. Her eyes hardened. You threatened our home. Outside the window, the human fleet powered up. Not with bright lights. Not with dramatic flares. Just silent readiness, like a predator deciding it was time. Sanar finished her sentence, voice sharp as steel. So now we are here. The first shot. On Council Station, Zalverin watched the incoming readings. His blood ran cold. Ships. Hundreds of ships. Impossible. Humans weren't supposed to have this. They weren't supposed to be capable. They weren't supposed to. A new alarm screamed. Incoming objects. The tactical display flashed. Dozens of fast-moving points accelerated toward the Council fleet stationed nearby. Missiles? No. Too fast. Too clean. They weren't missiles. They were something else. Something designed specifically to break Council pride. Zalverin whispered, for the first time in centuries, a single word. Impossible. Outside the station, the first human strike devices reached their targets. And space lit up. Not with fire, but with ships coming apart, silently, horribly, as if reality itself had decided they no longer belonged. The Council's first warship dissolved. Then another. Then 5 more. Within seconds, ancient metal that had ruled galaxies became drifting dust. And the galaxy finally understood. Humans had not arrived late. Humans had arrived prepared. The Galactic Council had ruled by fear for 12,000 years. Fear of annihilation. Fear of punishment. Fear of being alone in a hostile universe. But fear only works on those who believe survival depends on obedience. Humanity had learned something different. Sometimes survival depends on defiance. The first Council warship vanished without an explosion. One moment it existed, layers of ancient armor, shield generators older than human history, crews who believed themselves untouchable. The next moment, it simply came apart, molecule by molecule, as if the universe had decided it was a mistake. Silence followed. Not the calm silence of peace, but the stunned silence of disbelief. Then alarms screamed. On the bridge of the massive Council dreadnought Star of Dominion, Admiral Kraxer stared at his tactical display in horror. That weapon didn't penetrate our shields, he said. It ignored them. His officers shouted reports. Multiple hull failures. Structural integrity collapsing. Energy signatures don't match any known weapon. Kraxer slammed his clawed fist into the console. Return fire, he roared. All batteries. Council weapons lit up space with brilliant colors. Beams of plasma, antimatter torpedoes, gravitic lances, enough firepower to wipe out entire solar systems. They surged toward the human fleet. And missed. The human ships moved with impossible precision. They didn't dodge randomly. They didn't scatter. They anticipated. Human vessels slipped between attacks like dancers who knew every step before the music played. Some weapons passed harmlessly through projected decoys. Others detonated against invisible fields that absorbed and redirected energy. Kraxer felt cold. They studied us, he whispered. The human way of war. Admiral Sanar Idris watched the battlefield unfold with quiet focus. Her fleet did not rush. It did not chase fleeing ships. It targeted command vessels, sensor arrays, and coordination nodes. Her tactical officer glanced at her. They're breaking formation. They always do, Sanar replied. She had read the files. Humanity had spent decades analyzing Council battle doctrine. Council fleets were built on hierarchy. When leaders fell, confusion followed. Humanity's doctrine was different. Remove control. Create chaos. Then end it cleanly. Phase 3, Sanar ordered. At her command, human ships released small objects, dozens at first, then hundreds. Council sensors struggled to lock onto them. New contacts, an officer shouted. Unknown class. The objects unfolded mid-flight, reshaping themselves into sleek autonomous combat units. They were not piloted. They did not hesitate. They learned. Within seconds, they adjusted their movement patterns based on Council fire. Every miss became data. Every hit became a lesson. Council gunners panicked. They're adapting. They're predicting our shots. Sanar allowed herself one breath. Of course they are, she said. They were built by humans. The station under siege. On the Council station, Supreme Arbiter Zalverin felt the floor tremble. Emergency lights bathed the chamber in red. Aid after aid rushed in. Defense grid failing. Outer docking ring destroyed. Council fleet casualties exceeding 40%. 40%. In minutes. That number would have been unthinkable an hour ago. Zalverin stood rigid, his mind racing. For the first time in centuries, the Council was not in control of events. The human voice returned, echoing through the chamber. You ruled by fear, it said. You believed yourselves eternal. The hologram changed, showing live feeds of Council ships being dismantled. We studied your laws, your fleets, your habits, your arrogance. The voice paused. You never planned for an enemy that assumed you would try to destroy them. Councillor Drex snarled. We will still burn their world. Zalverin turned slowly. Can we? He asked quietly. No one answered. Because the truth was becoming clear. The Council fleet would never reach Earth. The weapon the Council couldn't understand. Deep inside the We Do Not Kneel, Dr. Lena Katri monitored a separate display. Numbers scrolled too fast for most to follow. Her assistant swallowed. The cascade is ready. Lena nodded. This is the point of no return, the assistant said. Lena looked at the stars beyond the glass. They crossed that line when they threatened children, she replied. She activated the system. Across Council space, the hidden devices humanity had planted for decades changed state. They were not bombs. They were amplifiers. Each one synchronized with the others, forming a distributed network that interacted with spacetime itself. Council scientists watched in confusion as readings spiked. What is that energy? One demanded. It's not an attack, another said. It's rewriting local constants. The truth was terrifying. Humanity wasn't just destroying ships. They were locking down space. FTL routes collapsed. Jump points vanished. Wormholes destabilized. Council fleets discovered they could no longer retreat. They were trapped in normal space, moving slowly, helplessly. The galaxy itself had become a cage. The moment of realization. Supreme Arbiter Zalverin finally understood. Humanity had not built weapons to fight the Council. They had built a system to end it. He activated a private channel. Contact the humans, he ordered. Moments later, Admiral Sanar Idris appeared on his display. She looked ordinary. That frightened him more than any monster could. "Call off your attack," Zalverin said. "Name your demands." Sanar's eyes did not soften. "You gave us demands," she replied. "You gave us a deadline. You gave us extinction." She leaned forward. "This is the consequence. You will destroy the balance of the galaxy." Zalverin snapped. Sanar shook her head. "No," she said. "You destroyed it long ago. We're just cleaning up." She cut the channel. Zalverin stared at the dark screen. For the first time in his long life, he felt something raw and real. Regret. When the Council fell, human ships closed in. One by one, Council warships were disabled, boarded, or erased. Some surrendered. Others fought to the end. None escaped. On the station, structural failures spread. Ancient systems overloaded. Shields collapsed. Councillors argued, shouted, accused one another. The illusion of unity shattered. Human boarding teams arrived, not screaming soldiers, but calm professionals. They moved with purpose, securing systems, isolating leaders, preventing civilian casualties. They did not slaughter. They ended. Captain Elias Monroe stood once more in the council chamber, now dark and broken. Zalverin faced him, no throne beneath him now. "You could have been vassals," Zalverin said weakly. Monroe met his gaze. "We could have been slaves," he replied. "We chose to be something else." Outside, the last council flagship fell silent. The galaxy watched. The rulers of the stars had bled. And humanity was no longer a question. It was an answer. The galaxy did not explode into chaos when the council began to die. It went quiet. Trade lanes emptied. Ancient alliances froze. Worlds that had lived under council law for generations waited in silence, afraid to breathe too loudly, afraid that choosing the wrong side would bring annihilation. For 12,000 years, the Galactic Council had been the ceiling over every civilization's head. Now that ceiling was cracking. And everyone was watching to see what would fall through. The council station drifted wounded above Caro's void. Entire sections were dark. Fires burned in corridors where no fire should exist. Emergency bulkheads sealed again and again, trying to contain damage that spread like a disease. Supreme Arbiter Zalverin stood alone in the central chamber. The throne no longer floated. Its power source had failed, dropping it to the floor like a discarded relic. Zalverin did not sit. He did not move. He stared at the stars beyond the shattered viewport, watching human ships glide with calm precision. They were everywhere. Not frantic. Not vengeful. Just inevitable. An aide approached cautiously. "High Arbiter," she said, voice shaking, "the last fleet reports total loss. Communications from 7 member worlds have gone silent. They are surrendering." Zalverin closed his eyes. Surrendering. The word tasted bitter. "They are doing what we taught them," he said softly. "Survive." Humanity's unlikely mercy. Admiral Sanar Idris stood aboard the We Do Not Kneel, reviewing real-time feeds from across Council space. Her fleet held every strategic node. The Council's ability to command, punish, and retaliate was gone. A younger officer spoke up. "Admiral, we're receiving transmission requests. Civilian worlds. Former Council members. They're afraid." Sanar nodded. "They should be," she said. "But not of us." She straightened. "Open a broadcast," she ordered. Galaxy-wide. The signal traveled instantly through humanity's network, appearing on screens across thousands of worlds. Sanar's face filled the displays. "This is Admiral Sanar Idris of Earth," she said. "Hear this clearly." Her voice was firm, but not cruel. "We are not here to conquer you. We are not here to replace one tyrant with another." On dozens of worlds, leaders leaned forward. Citizens held their breath. "We came because our home was threatened," Sanar continued. "We came because the Council believed extinction was a tool." She paused. We do not. Behind her, footage played, human ships disabling weapons, escorting civilian transports to safety, medical teams assisting wounded non-humans. We will defend ourselves, Sonar said. And we will never allow what was done to us to be done to anyone again. Then came the words that changed the galaxy forever. The Galactic Council is over. The Council's last choice. Back on the station, Zalverin listened to the broadcast in silence. He felt the weight of history pressing down on him. 12,000 years. All ending not with a final battle, but with a sentence. An aide whispered, "What are your orders?" Zalverin looked around the chamber, at the empty seats, the cracked symbols, the empire that had outlived its purpose. "There are no orders," he said. The aide froze. We must respond." Zalverin turned, his eyes tired. "No," he said. "We must end this properly." He activated a secure channel. "Request communication with Admiral Idris," he said. The connection opened moments later. Sonar appeared again. "You asked to speak," she said. Zalverin straightened as much as his failing body allowed. "I ruled through fear," he said. "I believed order required dominance. I believed survival demanded submission." He looked down. "I was wrong." The words echoed through the chamber. Sonar watched him carefully. "What do you want?" she asked. Zalverin exhaled. "To surrender," he said. "Not as a ruler, but as a citizen of the galaxy." For a long moment, Sonar said nothing. Then she nodded. "It will be done," she said. "The end without extermination." Human boarding teams escorted the remaining council members from the station. No executions. No humiliation. No revenge. Only removal. Across council space, similar scenes played out. Governors surrendered authority. Fleets powered down. Ancient prisons were opened. Some species celebrated. Some mourned. Some simply felt lost. Humanity did not rush to fill the void. Instead, they stabilized it. Human engineers restored trade networks. Human diplomats established neutral zones. Human security forces protected worlds that feared retaliation. They didn't demand loyalty. They demanded one thing only. "No species," read the declaration, "may threaten another with extinction." The truth spreads. On Earth, the truth was finally revealed to the public. Crowds watched as governments confirmed humanity was not alone, and never had been. They learned of the threat, of the countdown, of the choice. Fear spread. Then pride. People realized something powerful. Humanity had not won because it was the strongest. It had won because it had prepared. Because it had questioned authority. Because it had refused to believe that power meant righteousness. General Rhea Donovan watched from the command bunker as celebrations erupted in cities across the planet. "We did it," an aide said quietly. Donovan shook her head. "No," she replied. "We survived." She looked at the stars. And now comes the harder part. A galaxy without masters. Months passed. The old council station was dismantled. Not destroyed, but repurposed into a neutral archive, holding the history of what had been, and what must never return. Representatives from dozens of species gathered, not under threat, but by choice. Humans did not sit on a throne. They sat in a circle. Discussions were loud, messy, emotional, but they were free. Captain Elias Monroe stood at the edge of the chamber, watching aliens argue, negotiate, compromise. An alien diplomat approached him. "You could rule," she said. "No one would stop you." Monroe smiled faintly. "That's exactly why we won't," he said. The lesson the galaxy learned. Far from Earth, on a small world that had once feared council punishment, a teacher spoke to her students. "The council believed power came from fear," she said. "Humans believed power came from choice." A student raised a hand. "Are humans dangerous?" The teacher thought for a moment. "Yes," she said honestly. "Very." She smiled. but only to those who try to make them kneel. The age of the Galactic Council was over. The age of humanity had not begun as rulers. It had begun as guardians. And the galaxy would never forget the day a primitive species was threatened, and answered with the end of an empire. The galaxy did not celebrate the end of the Galactic Council. Not at first. There were no fireworks among the stars. No universal songs of victory. No sudden age of peace announced by grand speeches. Instead, there was uncertainty. Because when something that has ruled for 12,000 years disappears, it leaves behind a question far more frightening than tyranny. What comes next? In the months following the Council's collapse, worlds across the galaxy struggled to adjust. Species that had lived under strict laws now faced freedom for the first time. Some flourished. Others faltered. Old rivalries resurfaced. Trade disputes turned bitter. Ancient grudges, long suppressed by fear of Council punishment, began to rise again. Many feared the galaxy would tear itself apart. They looked to humanity. Some expected humans to step in as rulers. Others feared they already had. But humanity did neither. The human refusal. At the newly formed Galactic Assembly, representatives from over 100 species gathered. The chamber was smaller than the old council hall, intentionally so. No thrones. No elevated seats. No symbols of dominance. Just a circle. Admiral Sanar Idris stood when it was her turn to speak. "You want us to lead," she said plainly. "Some of you want us to enforce laws. Some of you want us to punish your enemies." Murmurs spread through the room. "We won't," Sanar continued. Silence fell. "We destroyed the council because it believed fear was governance. If we replace them, even with good intentions, we become the same thing." An alien delegate rose. "Then what are we supposed to do when conflict returns?" Sanar nodded slowly. "Then you will do what humans have always done," she said. "Argue. Fail. Learn. Try again." She paused. "And if someone threatens extinction again," her eyes hardened, "just for a moment, you won't stand alone." That was the promise. Not rule. Not domination. Protection without control. The guardians, not the masters. Human fleets did not withdraw. They repositioned. They became silent watchers along major trade routes. Neutral peacekeepers near volatile borders. First responders to disasters, not conquerors seeking tribute. When pirates attacked civilian convoys, human ships arrived. When old enemies prepared planetary strikes, human diplomats arrived first, human warships second. And when extinction-level weapons were detected, humanity arrived immediately. The galaxy learned quickly. You could fight each other. You could argue. You could even wage war. But if you threatened to erase a species, humanity would stop you. Every time. Zalverin's final record. In a quiet archive orbiting a dead star, Supreme Arbiter Zalverin lived out the remainder of his life. He was no longer a ruler. Just a witness. Before his death, he recorded a final message. "I believed order required fear," he said, his voice weak but clear. "I believed power justified itself." He looked tired. "I was wrong." He looked into the recording lens. Humanity did not destroy us because they hated us. They destroyed us because we threatened what they loved. The recording ended with his last words. "Remember this. Never threaten a species that has survived itself." The archive preserved the message. The galaxy would study it for generations. Earth changes too. Humanity did not walk away unchanged. Knowing they were not alone reshaped Earth forever. Nations cooperated in ways once thought impossible. Old divisions faded, not completely, but enough. Humanity finally understood something profound. They were no longer just a people of one planet. They were a responsibility. Children learned galactic history alongside human history. Scientists worked with alien minds, discovering physics once thought impossible. Art blended cultures across stars. And always, quietly, humanity remembered the countdown. The 12 hours. The threat. The moment everything could have ended. It kept them vigilant. It kept them humble. The question every species asked. On distant worlds, parents told their children stories. Not about gods. Not about emperors. But about a species from a blue planet that had been told to kneel, or die. A common question always followed. Why didn't humans take over? And the answer was always the same. Because they knew what it was like to live under someone else's thumb. Another question followed. Are humans heroes? The answer was more careful. They are dangerous, elders said. They are clever. They are stubborn. Then, after a pause. And they are kind, if you never force them to prove otherwise. The final truth. Years later, a young alien historian finished her thesis on the fall of the Galactic Council. Her final line was simple. The Council believed humanity was weak because it was young. Humanity survived because it never stopped growing. She submitted the paper. Outside her window, human and alien ships crossed peacefully. No empire. No council. Just choice. What humanity left behind. Humanity did not leave statues across the galaxy. They left warnings. They left boundaries. They left a single, unspoken rule written into the collective memory of the stars. Never threaten Earth. Never threaten extinction. Never assume humans are what they appear to be. Because when the galaxy tried to decide humanity's fate, humanity decided the galaxy's instead. Not with arrogance. Not with hatred. But with resolve.